Alright guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. KKC Productions here. And today I've got a little video going for my music class that I'm doing over the summer so I can finish up my college. And here we're going to be talking about the history of jazz. I picked this topic because I personally think jazz is very unique, it's very different, and it's got so many different musical tones and just the different brass instruments that they use. It just sounds really, really nice. So I figured this would be a nice topic to choose over some of the older stuff like Mozart and stuff. So I think this would be a really good genre to choose for this product. And of course, most of you may know me as Kyle. That's my name. Today is the date I'm going to be recording this, is the 28th. And this is for my music appreciation class 1101. The other numbers is just the course ID. So let's get this started and show you guys what I got going in these slides for you. Here we go. Is to talk about the history of jazz. We started in the pre-1850s, near the earliest 20th century. So from this being said, this is the time that maybe the roots of jazz was created. As you can see, the next point, it says from 1815 to 1861. This is sort of where the roots, where they started to take hold and basically figure out exactly what was going to be in this type of genre. And then obviously later on in time, right around the 1900s, the period of jazz actually started to get building a little bit better, and people started making more of that music. As we can see, some forms were shaped by the black experience in the United States. So as this black culture seemed to form around in different areas, it started to pop up with this type of music going on. And New Orleans is the supposed birthplace. New Orleans is where a lot of this jazz was created. This is where most of jazz was actually known to be taking place. And New Orleans, as you hear a lot of terms called New Orleans jazz. So we can hear that is really where jazz was actually born, at least from that we know of. So it's really unique there. And actually, one little side fact, this was one of the only places that allowed African Americans at the time to play drums. Anything with the drums and that sort of percussion. So this is actually where they started to actually let African Americans in society do a little bit different stuff, and a lot where the music was created, since that was actually allowed there. So back to the part where it talks about where the roots of jazz were actually came from. They said some could have been born in the 1895 by Buddy Bolden and his first band, and also there's other topics where it says that in 1917 Nick LaRocca, in the Dixieland Jazz Band, they recorded the first jazz record. So some can say that it was the first time it was recorded is where it was created, or it can be where they said in the 1895 where the first band was created. So let's go to our next slide. And here we go again. In 1890 to 1917, brass bands became popular in New Orleans. So here, this is where it actually started to become more popular and started to grow. And again, roots of jazz, they nourished in the African American community. I kind of stated that in the last slide, but this kind of states it's specifically in the African American community, not just in the United States. And then the jazz style, as the history of jazz is created, in the later eras, the 1930s to 40s, they call it the swing era. That's where a lot of the music was a lot of very swingy in the jazz components. And then in the 1940s, that bebop music. And then the 60s, it's an avant-garde. So this tells you exactly different styles that were changed over the history of jazz. Let's go on to our next slide. Some of our elements we're going to be talking about here. Jazz played with a ragged time. So this is the way the music is actually played, and it kind of has that uppity beat that goes along, kind of that swing of the music and the variations in that tempo. It really gets you into the music. That's really played a key role in the jazz and creating its history that it currently is and what we see today. New Orleans jazz bands, they mostly were made of the cornet, the clarinet, and the trombone. We have a lot of the horns and a lot of the brass you hear. That's mostly made up of the jazz situation and how they created all that. The trumpet is actually the most common you hear in jazz. Most music, you always hear a horn. And the jazz elements with jazz itself, it really comes into the individuality and the timbre, or if I'm saying that right. So what can really change that timbre, you may see some people actually play when they're playing like the clarinet or on these other instruments like that. They use a plunger. They sometimes will take the plunger off the end of the stick, and they'll use the plunger to help on their hand and actually muffle the noise of the trumpet and make a different noise. So it's kind of a really cool element that they use. The main instruments that are actually used is the wind instruments, brass instruments, and the reed instruments. That's more defining the actually type of instruments they use. Like I said, brass many times already in the slides here. Let's go to others. I have a few more elements we got here. When it comes to the rhythm of jazz, harmony, bass, and percussion are very important in creating that jazz. Kind of like that swing I already talked about. Or as we can see here that the heartbeat and that rhythmic pulse. So as the music goes, it kind of sounds like I'm snapping or a heartbeat going on, and it keeps that beat going. So if you hear that jazz music, you can hear your foot kind of moving with it. It gets you really into the music. As we talk about the harmony, the piano, guitar, and banjo, not all those are in every single jazz music, but a piano can be very important in creating that harmony with the music, and really a guitar that can really get things going. Double-meter is most common in this type of music. It's a polyphonic texture that comes from the big bands. We got a lot of bands and a lot of people within the bands, and they play all that jazz music and get that different tone. Unless you're like Louis Armstrong, he's played a lot of different music where he plays by himself, and that would obviously change our texture there. Here I actually talk about Louis Armstrong. Here's one of the people that influenced jazz, and I could have picked other people, but I'm like Louis Armstrong. Mostly everyone knows and heard about Louis Armstrong. He was born on August 4th of 2001, and then he died at age 69 in 1971. He grew up in poverty, obviously from New Orleans, which made a big influence on him with music. And he sung in a boys' quartet when he was young, so that really got him learning and getting him into the music itself. King Oliver, he taught Louis Armstrong in his teens how to start playing music. I'm pretty sure he actually gave one of his instruments, he got him an instrument, the trumpet, and he started to really play with that music and really got into it and actually advanced over King Oliver, and I think later we actually replaced him in his own band. He eventually played in movies, radio, and television, and he had he had a lot of humor and stuff he'd play on through all those movies and the radio. He ensured jazz's survival and developed it into a fine art. As I said, he's very important, played a very important role in jazz and fine-tuning it into what it is today. And he's obviously one of the most famous artists that we've pretty much known in the jazz history. Let me choose one more person. We can see Miles Davis, born in 1926, and died in 1991. So he was here for quite a while. He didn't die not too long ago, but if you actually think about it, that was almost 30 years ago from the date currently. He was a very major influence in the jazz art from the late 1940s. He was obviously born a lot later than Louis Armstrong, almost 25 years. So it really took a little bit for him to get going. He was probably in his late teens. He studied the trumpet in his early teens, as it says. He played in a lot of jazz bands in St. Louis, and then eventually he moved to New York City in 1944. So he's really got into it, and then later years, about 4 or 5 years later, when he went to New York City, he really got into the jazz itself. He really experimented with the harmonies and the rhythm in his improvisations, and he was one of the 4 most influential jazz musicians to be in history today. It's sad to know, but he played his final album, Doo-Bop, in 1992, and he died less than 3 months later. But he continued going till the end, and he didn't back down. At one point, he did stop playing for like 5 years when he was older after he had a car accident. But he continued to go, and as he said, he still put an album out, and then he died 3 months later. So he's kicking strong. All right, I have some videos. I'm gonna just play it for a second so you can hear the difference in the songs here. But this is a current artist that I found on YouTube. He's really good. You can actually go to the Atlanta Symphony Hall. He'll play there. I think once a year he'll come there and get things going. Let's see if I can play this right here. It's kind of see if I can jump this in the middle. All right, so you can see here he's actually playing with the broken plunger, getting that tone going on in there. So you can kind of see a little bit of that right there. Really, really unique. Jump this forward, and we got a clarinet going on right here. Really getting into it. All right, and then over here, same guy. So you can see really it gets that little swing going and you start dancing with it. So I figured I'll show you just a few slides. You can obviously, I'll have links to these and you can go see them in the YouTube video I post here. And that's really it. I just did a few slides. Here's my Works Cited page, a few of the places that I found all my stuff. The YouTube videos, we have links to those in the video. So here's where I found a lot of my information. And I thank you guys for watching. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And you guys can learn something from this video that I put on here for you guys. You guys don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. And I'll see you guys in the next.